A video I'm making of a program from the book C Programming Absolute Beginner's Guide. It's chapter 5, and the chapter is called Adding Variables to Your Programs. And what I'm doing here is I wrote here the program will consist of 3 kids' school supplies and their cost, the cost of those school supplies. So I included this preprocessor here called include and SDO.h. SDO means standard input output and .h. And I put the main function here, and I made it have a comment here. What I'm doing here in the beginning is setting up my variables and defining a few of them. So here I set up one variable here called character, first initial, and another one variable called middle initial, integer, number of pencils, another integer, number of notebooks, and then the float. I need a floating point because I'm using a decimal point. I can use floating points or double. You can use float or double. Here I use float. And it's pencils. And the value of the pencil is 0.2. So here I'm just stating that, okay, some number of pencils. Here is the um, I could have used integer if the pencils did not have a period, but because I'm using money or value, I'm going to use we can use float or double. So I chose to use float since it takes less space than double. And I don't need a big value. With double you need bigger value. You can use bigger values with double. But float you don't really need as much bigger values. Just something simple. So float. We'll use float. So 0.23, that's the value of the variable pencils. And the cost or value of the number of the not the number, the value of the notebooks is 2.89, maybe $2.89. I'm still using a float because I'm using a point here. My lunchbox, the cost of or value of the lunchbox is 4.99. I'm still using a float here. Now I typed in the first child's info, and I took the variable here, first initial and middle initial, and put it here. First initial J, that's a character, and I put it in single quotes, J, and middle initial equals R. So I have the first one and the middle one, and I gave them a value, J and R, and did the sentence. Now the number of pencils here, I gave this a value 7. Number of notebooks, I gave that a value 4. That's the information of the first child. And what I want to do, if you think of the simple math involved in this, what I need to do is add up the number of pencils times the value of the pencils, right? So 7 times 0.23, right? Plus the number of notebooks, which is 4. So 4 times $2.89. So that plus the lunchbox. The lunchbox cost, or the value of the lunchbox, is 4.99, and you add that to it. So it's going to be number of notebooks of 4 times 0.23 plus 7 times 2.89 plus 4.99. And so when we print it out, it's going to be we're going to take this here and put %C. %C is a character plus a character. And this here will represent the name that we are using, which is JR. First initial and middle initial is a variable of a character. So we're going to use that here. Print character, right? So character needs, this is going to be JR, character needs an integer amount of pencils, okay, an integer amount of notebooks, and one lunchbox. And we put our return key here to give us a space. We actually don't need it, but we put it here for spatial reasons. And then look, we match our character with the first character, the second character, right here, our middle initial. We could have used first initial, but we're not doing that. We're not doing JJ, we're doing JR. So first initial, middle initial, right here. They must match up. They match up here. And then the next one is what? %D, some integer, right? What kind of integer do we need? We need pencils. And so we look up here, number of pencils, okay? Number of pencils here for the first child is 7. So it's already defined. So all we have to do is type in number of pencils. Okay, so %D is lining up with this. We could have put in number of notebooks instead here. We could have done this, but look, we want our variables to match up with the sentence that we're using, right? So we're using pencils. So we're not going to type in number of notebooks here first. We're going to type in number of pencils, which equals 7. So number of pencils. And we go forward, %D, which is integer of notebooks, right? So we need notebooks. We look here. Okay, we type in number underscore of underscore notebooks, and it equals to 4. It's already defined. 4 is already defined. So number of notebooks, we put that next, since that's next in line. %D or integer of notebooks. So it's already defined. So all we got to do is put the name of it here. And one lunchbox. Okay, it's already there for us, so we don't need to really do anything. So that's what we wanted to say here. It's going to give us this output of JR needs 7 pencils and 4 notebooks and 1 lunchbox. And then here's something I want to say here. I want it to calculate the cost of this stuff. So that means I need to bring in my values here that I define, my floating points. The values I define in my floating points are float pencils, float notebooks, float lunchbox. You see the values here: 23 cents, $2.89, and 4.99. So I just write in the sentence. This is what I'm writing. The total cost is, I put a $sign. Okay. I put a 0.2 F because I want my floating point to only have 2 values after the decimal point. Okay, I could have just done this. Okay, %F, and that will give me a floating point, but then it will have like 6 or 8 numbers after the decimal point. I just want 2, so 0.2. So %.2F. And we're locking it in. We're locking the amount of decimal places we want after the F, a floating point. So %F, as we know, is floating point. %D is integer. %C is character. Here, %F, we only want 2 numbers after our decimal places. And we're going to give us 2 spaces underneath the sentence. So the total cost is some dollar value. Okay, and it consists of this calculation here: number of pencils times pencils plus number of notebooks times notebooks, okay, plus lunchbox. All right, in the sentence. Second child, we're going to do the same thing. For the second child, we need, of course, the same thing. We need the first initial, we need the middle initial, we need a number of pencils that child needs, and we need the value. Oh, the value is already here. Value is forever this way, no matter what child grabs it or buys it. So all we need for the second child is their first initial, middle initial, number of pencils and number of notebooks. So here we go. So the first initial of the second child, first initial of the second child is going to be A. Okay, remember this is a character. See, first initial, middle initial. It's going to be A, and in the sentence with this. Okay, the middle initial will be J. So AJ, that's his name. And now we need number of pencils. We do the same thing. Number of pencils. Number of pencils. Number of pencils, and it's gonna equal. He needs 10. Let's say 10. He needs 10 pencils. And number of notebooks. Number of notebooks that AJ needs. Number of notebooks that AJ needs is 3. All right. Now we're going to do the same thing here. When it prints out, we want to have AJ's name, and we're going to state the number of integers and of pencils and number of integers of notebooks. So print F, percent character, right? Whatever his name is needs percent D pencils, percent D integer of notebooks, right? And 1 lunchbox. Period. And let's do the same thing here. Oops. It looks like I messed up here. I had a forward slash instead of a backslash. There we go, forward slash n. Okay. So this person needs percent pencils, percent the integer notebooks, and 1 lunchbox. And we need to add. We need to add this here. So first initial here, and then middle initial. Right. And that's it. One. Oh no. Oh, I forgot to put AJ. Otherwise, first initial, a number would be CC, right? It has to match up. So CC has to, the first one has to be, oh yeah, first initial, A, and then middle initial. And there you go, J. There we go. First initial, middle initial, and the next one is percent D pencil. So percent D will be number of pencils. Okay, and then number of notebooks, and then now we are done. Okay, that's what we want it to say, what he needs, and now we want it to calculate what we want. The total cost is $, percent. We want to have 2 decimal places after the floating, after 2 decimal. We want the dollar to only have 2 decimal places, not like 8 or more than that. Okay, and we're gonna have some space there to give us 2 new lines, spaces, and now we're gonna create our floating point, right? Our floating point by doing some math here, letting the calculator do some math. So number of pencils times the pencils, right? We need number of pencils times the value of the pencils, right? That's going to give you the cost of of what he needs, okay, in terms of pencils, plus number of notebooks times notebooks. Okay, and then he needs a lunchbox, right? So lunchbox, so lunchbox, and we're done. Now we're gonna do the in our statement here. Now we're gonna do a third child here. So third child information. And we're gonna do the same thing here. First initial of the first initial of the first child. I mean third child. The first initial of the third child is gonna be M in our statement. The middle initial of the third child is going to be T in their statement, and the number of pencils he needs, or she needs, don't know what MT is. Number of pencils that she needs is 10. Number of what? Notebooks, right? Number of notebooks that she needs is 3. And we're going to make a sentence. The sentence is going to say MT needs 10 pencils and 10 notebooks. So we can type it out. We can type MT or MT needs 10 pencils and 3 notebooks. We can do that. That's possible. And then printf, it will print this out. But we don't want to do it that way. What we want to do is to be able to, instead of looking into the line of the code here within printf, we want it just to be able to change a number here. So if this is like really long, like a paragraph long, all you got to do is just change the number here instead of looking for it. If this is really long and huge, it's easier to just change the number here, because you can see that what value is, the values that you're using. So MT, and in here, you can always switch the M and the T in case you're wrong. You don't have to go inside the string here to change it. So %C, right? So MT needs an integer amount of pencils some number amount of notebooks, and of course, and one lunch box. And period. We're gonna backspace this. Let's see, make sure I'll backspace. New line. No, one line is okay. And now we're going to put our variables. We're gonna match our variables with the character here and the other stuff here. What they're called. So first character is first initial, right? Next is middle initial, right? And the third one is %D pencil, so it's a number of pencils, and number of notebooks. Okay, it's 4, and we're done. Now, what we want the computer to do is give us a calculation of these values, the values that we have. So printf the total cost is $, and we only want 2 decimal places after the dollar sign, not 8. So, and it's a floating point because we have decimal places. So $, 0.2f instead of just $. Something's wrong. Percent f. Yes. So percent 0.2f. And we're going to give it. Let's give it 2 new lines instead of 1. And we're going to give that percent f of value via calculation. So what we want to do is multiply the number of pencils. So number of notebooks, number of pencils times pencils, so floating point pencils, plus number of notebooks times notebooks, plus we're missing something called lunchbox, so plus lunchbox. That's a floating point here. Right? So what we have done again is take the number of pencils times the value of pencils, number of notebooks times the cost of notebooks, and 1 lunchbox, and add them all up. And the computer should calculate this for us. And now, when we get what we want the computer to do is that when it prints this stuff out, you want it to return a 0 value, which means we don't want any errors when it returns. If there's no error, it will just return nothing. So let's save this. Build. We have no error. Oh, it's still building. We have 1 error here. Print F. What did I do wrong? Oh, yes. So print F, something is misspelled. Print F. You see? Print F. I forgot my T here. There we go. Build again. Save. Build. And let's build and run. There we go. Here's our program. JR needs 7 pencils, 4 notebooks, and 1 lunchbox. The total cost is $18.16. AJ needs 10 pencils, 3 notebooks, and 1 lunchbox. The total cost is $15.96. MT needs 10 pencils, 3 notebooks, and 1 lunchbox. The total cost is $15.96. So we built a program that calculates for us 3 kids' school supplies and the cost of those school supplies. And that was amazing. This is a great program, right? So we're naming and defining different types of these things called variables. We declare variables. So we're naming them, and not only did we name them, you can see in a few of them we define the value for them, because we want to use we want to calculate the cost of these pencils and notebooks, so we gave them a value here. And that's it.